Well, the nation's mood and economy begins to bounce back overall. For many, the continued restrictions of up to 4 weeks mean yet more worry and more agony.
So let's discuss the announcement yesterday. We're joined now by the Chair of Public Health at the University of Edinburgh, Professor Linda Bald, businessman Luke Johnson, nighttime economy advisor for Greater Manchester, Sasha Lord, and theatre owner and entrepreneur, Dame Rosemary Squire. Very good morning to all of you. Professor Bald, I just wonder if, firstly, we can just get the kind of medical background to this. The reason why Boris Johnson has said, look, we just have to be patient, we have to give the vaccines more legs. As people will say, is this the end of it, or is this just going to be extended? And if it's extended further towards the autumn, we then get into flu season. Some people worried this could continue all the way into next year. What's your view?
Well, I certainly hope it's not going to continue indefinitely. I think what's happening at the moment is that there are 4 tests that the UK government wanted to pass or have resolved, and the 4th one, variants of concern, has not been met. And the Delta variant now accounts for about 96% of cases. Cases are rising around 60%. Rates of people in hospitals rising about 50%. So my colleague, Professor Andrew Hayward, said at the weekend that if you're not quite sure what's happening when you come around a bend and you're driving, you don't accelerate, you decelerate. So what the government is doing is giving the NHS more time to deliver more doses of vaccines, particularly second doses in the face of this new variant, to relieve both the pressure on the NHS and also the level of illness in the community. And that's why the decision's been taken.
Luke Johnson, you're the former chairman of Pizza Express, aren't you? Your position on this is that there's always going to be a new variant coming down the tracks towards us, and we've got to learn to live with that. Do you think that this 4-week extension is reasonable, or do you think that actually we should have called time on June the 21st and said, let's just deal with it from now on?
Unquestionably, we should have ended all the restrictions. We are more vaccinated than virtually any other country. We were promised that when the vulnerable were vaccinated, Matt Hancock said, cry freedom, and we will be able to travel and businesses will be able to trade normally. And the incremental connections that opening up society properly now would do would be trivial in the context of what's already happening. And it seems to me that we have allowed ourselves to be taken over by obsessively risk-averse views, which focus on one disease only in a monomaniac fashion and disregard the 1,600 other deaths a day that are happening from every other sort of illness. And we've become a hypochondriac country. And we need to get into proportion.
And are you worried that the horizon is simply going to infinitely move away from us? Every time we get to the end of another lockdown sequence, there'll be something else to worry about, and we'll have another 4 weeks and another 4 weeks, because that seems to be a common reaction this morning.
We have allowed the public health complex to take over our lives, removing freedoms that have never been withdrawn from society throughout history. And we have frightened ourselves into a position where the government has taken completely disproportionate controls, and we have to get things back into proportion.
Sasha Lord, you deal with hospitality, you deal with the nighttime industry, the nightclubs. You know, there was one of our reporters said yesterday, there's plenty of 18 and 19-year-olds currently who have never been into a nightclub, and they're going to have to wait an extra couple of weeks. I mean, that's quite a stark reminder of the fact that something which is almost a rite of passage for many people has been put on ice for such a long time. What sort of practical problems does the delay pose to those sorts of businesses? Because if you're expecting to open up on June the 21st, you will have had to have got supplies in, you will have had to have got staff in, you would have had to have made arrangements for the end of furlough. I mean, this isn't just oh, that's inconvenient, this is a couple of weeks. That's a lot of money and outlay, isn't it?
No, you're absolutely right. And I've got to be honest with you, this morning, I absolutely despair. I think what last night was shock, emotion this morning is actually anger. So 9 out of 10 venues across the whole of the UK were gearing up to open on the 21st of June. And they were gearing up mainly on the back of the Prime Minister's positive comments throughout the whole of last week. He saw nothing in the data that would think we'd have to move away from the 21st. And then we saw the leaks coming out, didn't we, on Friday? And that's what they've continuously done, this government, the leaks. So across the whole of this weekend, the anxiety amongst the industry was sky high. My phone was melting. And then we sat for the inevitable yesterday at 6 o'clock. We knew what was coming, but the shock that came was they have refused to extend the support, the sector-specific support. And the Chancellor now has created a perfect storm that could decimate large parts of the industry.
So
there are three things.
Go on. I was going to say, basically, what you're saying is that your end of the industry, because the government is governing by leak a lot of the time, and occasionally even smears, you're having to constantly read the runes. Instead of getting straight information, which must have been available towards the back end of last week, they must have made their dispositions, you're having to sort of second-guess everything, and you've guessed wrong because you were given wrong information.
Well, you're right. Up until Friday, Richard, you know, he was saying repeatedly, I see nothing in the data, nothing in the data, nothing in the data. And then the leaks arrive. And we know he made a decision on Sunday, so why wait until 6 o'clock on Monday to make the actual announcement? It doesn't make sense. But look, what I'm now saying is this. The Chancellor has to come back with urgent support. There are three things that are going to fall away. These three things will close businesses and create mass redundancies over the next 4 weeks. You've got the rent moratorium that's going to fall away at the end of this month. That is the protection that protects tenants from commercial evictions. That finishes. Furlough is going to start to taper away, and you're going to have to start to pay business rates. How can you do that when some businesses, especially nightclubs, are completely shut?
Well, let's come to Rose. Sorry to interrupt you. We just want to get everybody in, but I apologise.
No, but those are really important points.
They're excellent points,
aren't they? Yeah. The rent moratorium ends. The furlough will come to an end very shortly, and business rates you'll have to start paying again. I mean, huge financial penalties, really.
Well, let's come to Dame Rosemary Squire now. Morning, Rosemary. Now, you own or manage a shed load of theatres across the country. You own Trafalgar Entertainment, which is a very big company. We've seen Lloyd Webber taking the government on head-on and saying that whatever happened, he was going to open to full theatres on June the 21st, and if they wanted to come and arrest him, they could come and arrest him. They seem to have appeased him by saying that they're happy for him to be part of an experiment, but they haven't made any details clear about that, and he says this morning he still hasn't heard exactly what they mean. Do you think that his stance has maybe helped to save your industry?
Well, I completely agree with Andrew. I think certainly our company, we would have to act within the law. You know, we have shareholders that we're responsible to, but his sentiment is completely spot on. It's devastating for our industry. I spent yesterday in our beautifully refurbished Trafalgar Theatre, which is waiting Jersey Boys, stunning venue now. The show is in rehearsal. And then I moved from there to the rehearsal room for Anything Goes, a huge musical that's going into the Barbican Theatre, all of which are in jeopardy now, because what we need as an industry is certainty. We absolutely have to have certainty, because you can't mount a major production without weeks and months of preparation. And as Sasha said, we've been working on the basis that the advice from the Prime Minister was right, that the statistics, there was nothing in the statistics that he could see to diverge from the roadmap. And we have prepared everything for the end of June. So now what do you do with people? Do you just put them on hold? Are you going to lay them off? Our industry has been dramatically, terribly affected by the pandemic, with freelancers, people on the breadline.
So what you all seem to be saying collectively, Rosemary, I'll sort of come back to you, is that if people watching this are thinking and have been saying over the last 24 hours or so, well, it's only another 4 weeks, it's just another 4 weeks. What you all seem to be saying is, yeah, but you don't have skin in the game. And if you've got skin in the game, that 4 weeks could be the end of certain businesses, industries and jobs.
It could. I mean, I think there's a point where there's the straw that breaks the camel's back, isn't there? That our industries have really suffered over the past 16 months or so. And now we're at the moment, we have to go. We need to earn some money. You know, walk in the centre of London. I walked down the Strand yesterday. There are 3 or 4 theatres on the Strand. Half of the businesses, the shops, the pubs, the restaurants are boarded up. Yeah. They need us to generate money to bring customers into London.
OK.
can come safely, we can arrange that, but they need to come in.
Professor Ball, this is all about getting more people jabbed, but we have well over half the adult population double jabbed. If the jabs are effective, as we know they are, a lot of people will be saying, you know, like Luke said, we now become obsessively risk averse. What is the point of jabbing if jabbing doesn't loosen up some of these restrictions and give us our freedoms back?
I don't think we become obsessively risk averse. I think there's just been a massive failure to both address the economic harms and the health harms. The countries that have done well or have done, you know, emerged through this pandemic with fewer people dying preventably and less damage to their economy are those that have managed the virus. They've not lurched in and out of restrictions the way that we're doing. I'm listening to my colleagues here and, you know, they're making so many good points. The reason we're in the situation we're in is because the UK has not responded well to this crisis. But just back to the vaccines. The vaccines are effective. They're slightly less effective against this variant. It's not a huge gap, but there is still one. And I just want to make a point. I think it was your first speaker who was speaking after me said, we're obsessed with a single disease. Well, actually, what I'm most interested in is cancer, heart disease, diabetes. And we have tens of thousands, in fact, hundreds of thousands of patients who've not been treated and are waiting for treatment. And the last thing we need at the moment is more COVID patients in hospital because the NHS needs to get on with treating those other illnesses and catching up. And everybody, I think, would probably agree with that.
Listen, we're going to have to end it there. We're a bit over time. But you all spoke very powerfully. That was very interesting. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution.